Hi, everyone. Welcome to Avantico's the first 3PL Automation Cloud webinar of 2025. I'm Aaron Klein, the Marketing Director here at Avantico, and joining me today is our featured speaker for this session, Microsoft D365 Supply Chain Consultant Steve Stallings. And today's session is all about how you can streamline contracts and billing in D365 Finance and Supply Chain with the 3PL Automation Cloud. And Steve will dive into the details here shortly. But before we jump into today's session, I'd just love to share with you some of the exciting webinars and in-person events that we have coming up. So first, on February 25th, 10 a.m. Pacific, we'll be hosting and introducing AMCS Lite, free multi-company accounting automation for D365 F&SCM. Join us to discover how AMCS Lite can streamline your multi-company journal processes within Dynamics 365 Finance for free, as in that solution is free. Then on March 6th, 10 a.m. Pacific, right? Join us for What You Need to Know, Microsoft D365 Update 10043. We'll be exploring the most important updates and enhancements for Microsoft D365 Finance and Supply Chain, learn about the 2025 update cadence, and see some of the most exciting updates in action, plus a live Q&A. And then finally, Power Automate Streamlined Workflows and Approvals will be on March 18th, 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn how to streamline approval processes and minimize licensing costs with Power Automate workflow approvals, routing approvals to Teams, Outlook, or custom Canvas apps. And then we'll be in Chicago at ProMat 2025. This is a massive logistics centers trade show, March 17th. You're good, Steve. No worries. March 17th to the 20th. Attendance is free, and we'd love to see you there. All the registration links for these events will be available in the chat on our website, and then also linked here within the deck. And then just one last note before we jump in. As we go through the presentation, do not hesitate to pop any questions you have into the chat. I'll relay those to Steve in a timely manner without interrupting him as best I can. And then, of course, there'll be an open Q&A at the end of the presentation. And with that, Steve, if you want to take it away, it's all you.
Thank you. Well, thanks for joining us today. What we're going to share with you today are some of the essential elements of our 3PL Automation Cloud. To give you a little bit of background, the 3PL industry has been underserved by Microsoft for many years because, first of all, out of the box, Microsoft Warehouse Management does not handle customer-owned goods that are not on our financial ledger, they're just physically in our warehouse. So for 3PL providers, that was a big stumbling block. The next stumbling block and most important one is the ability to manage contracts and do billing in a timely manner. 3PL enterprises generate millions of billable activities in a matter of days or weeks. And as a result of that, they have to handle large volumes in invoicing. Some of our customers were taking more than a month to do that. And by automating that process, we reduced it to a couple of days and taken their staffs down by from like 7 or 8 people doing billing down to 1 or 2 people doing billing. So we've fully automated that process, and that's what we really want to spend time with you on today. So the contract management side of the business is essentially, oops, sorry, I skipped a slide here. I'll just describe it. The contract management side of the business here is essentially the setting up and management of contracts, which we also wanted to automate. So contract renewals, contract escalations, contract cancellations, contract alerts, all of those things are automated with rules within the system. And I'll show you how those work as we get into the live demo, so that we can make sure that the contracts represent the services we're selling to our 3PL clients. From that standpoint, we also want to make sure that we can handle all those different billable activities that a contract might have to cover. So we manage that through the billable activity types and billable activity lines, which can have many, many sources. They can come from warehouse management, from procurement, from material management, from shipping, which could be within Dynamics 365 or external systems that we're pulling data through an API. So the clients that are using or that operate in a 3PL environment, they would have to be on a Dynamics 365 finance solution for our application to work, but they can be using any warehouse management, any other third-party applications where we can get those billable activities since we've automated that process. The second piece of that is the billing itself. If you're generating millions of transactions, putting together invoices is an arduous task. And by automating that, we can save a great deal of time in the generation of invoices. We can summarize those invoices the way a client wants to see them. So each client can be different, whether they want to see them by line of business or by warehouse or by product type. Any of those attributes can be defined as the way we present the invoice. And then behind those invoice summary lines are thousands of transactions that we also present to the client so that we can get paid on time without disputes, which really drastically shortens billing cycles and allows clients to bill in days or weeks as opposed to months. And then, of course, shorten their day sales outstanding, which reduces their credit requirements and saves them a great deal of money overall. In some cases, $15–20 million a year. And then finally, we have got a customer portal, which I'll describe to you later in the day, and analytics and AI capability using Power BI, and then compliance and controls for clients that are public companies that have to report to auditors and to their clients exactly how they're being billed so that can be audited. So with only one more slide here before I jump into the system, our billing solution sits on Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain. It utilizes the AR module primarily, but we fully automate this solution for 3PL clients. And it uses products, both as the products that are stored in the warehouse that are owned by clients, as well as the services that we're going to provide. Other than that, it can pretty much pull data from anywhere. So any warehouse management system, and we have clients on several of these shown in the top left. We work with the warehouse only mode with Microsoft that's just been released a couple of months ago. And of course, we work with clients on Dynamics 365 Advanced Warehouse Management. The big deal here in 3PL is that clients spend a lot of time and money on their operations and getting their warehousing to run smoothly. They don't necessarily want to rip and replace all of that to put in a billing solution. So we allow them to keep their operational systems in place and simply pull that data through the API to generate the billable activities for the contract management and billing engine. That saves them a lot of money and allows them to operate in a hybrid mode as well, where some of their warehouses may have been converted to Dynamics and others are still running on legacy systems. And they can grow by acquisition, acquiring a new set of warehouses that run on whatever they run on and still run those through the same billing engine. By the same token, over on the right-hand side, you'll notice that we work with multiple legacy systems for things like procurement and fulfillment and other places where billable activities are generated that may or may not be in Dynamics 365. We can pull data from external systems like ADP for payroll or Concur for expense or any other systems along those lines. And then finally, in the middle of the right-hand side, you see carrier invoices. One of the big problems with 3PL businesses is that they generate millions of tracking numbers for carriers. A lot of it is parcel, some of it is LTL, and those carriers invoice them on a very, very frequent basis. So we've also got direct EDI connections to any carriers that are EDI capable. We don't need a third-party EDI provider. We pull that data in native and utilize it native from the carriers themselves. So it gives us the ability to manage all of the billable activities in one place. So typically, what have we found when working with clients? They can reduce their cash flow, their day sales outstanding, by millions of dollars. One of our clients reduced it by 15 million in the first year alone. They could have done it faster, except that several of their current clients had contracts that didn't expire until later in the year, so they weren't able to convert them over to a more frequent billing cycle until then. But by being able to bill daily or weekly rather than monthly, it really does reduce the day sales outstanding and improve cash flow. The other hidden benefit is that there are many billable activities that a client would, or their value-added services, let's say, that a client would like to bill for, but they just either can't access the data or the access to the data is manual and it's too expensive to generate any value. So we've allowed clients to generate up to $5 million in additional revenue by finding additional billable activities that they can charge for. To give you an example, we have one client that is a network or a marketplace, kind of like Amazon, smaller but similar to Amazon. And they were allowing clients to pay by credit card because they worked with a lot of small manufacturers that paid by credit card. As a result, they were incurring $3.7 million a year in credit card fees that they were absorbing. We helped them turn those into billable activities and charge their clients back for the credit card fees, saving them $3.7 million and adding a new revenue stream to their business. So lots of ways that we can help clients once we automate this process. And then finally, we're not going to be talking about the freight reconciliation module today. That webinar comes up in March or April, but there's another fantastic place to save money by identifying your freight reconciliation discrepancies and charging those back to your clients as freight adjustments rather than absorbing them in your GL as liabilities. So those are the kinds of things that we're doing for our clients. A short list of clients at the bottom of the page here. And we're going to get into the business system now. So what I'm going to spend time on today is contracts first, how we define durations, escalations, auto renewal, different contract statuses, proactive alerts, which is very different than the way Microsoft does it out of the box, our copy from and copy to capabilities, and then contract branding, so that when we do business for ABC company who has inventory in our warehouse, the billing looks like it's coming from, or sorry, not the billing, but the shipping documents look like they're coming from that company and not from us as the provider. And then finally, we'll get into the contract execution, the billable activities, which is the types and the lines, the billing intervals that we support, and then different types of billing, from one-time billing to periodic time-based billing, calculation-based billing. I'll show you examples of that. Many cases of transaction-based billing, user-defined billing examples, because we by no way have we identified every possibility, so we allow users to define their own types. And then the way we do pricing, simple pricing of a price per pallet or price per unit, or complex pricing using a billing rate matrix that allows you to set many different conditions on pricing. Automatic billable activities, so that things that aren't necessarily captured as transactions, but we know we're done because another type of transaction was done, we can calculate those as well and bill for those. And then derived billing. If A happened, then B can be calculated. So derived billing is a more complex way of doing automatic billing. So I'll show you all of those as we get into the system, but I'll give you a quick overview of what's happening here. We're getting data in from warehouses, whether it's a Dynamics warehouse in real time or third-party warehouses in near real time, that are coming through our API. And those billable activities are being reviewed in our queue. And as unassigned billable activities, they get edited to make sure they pass all the different requirements, that they have all the data necessary to process them before we put them onto sales orders and invoices. That really helps in the invoicing side, because we don't have to find errors that are actually posted to sales orders and invoices. If they err out, they go into an error log, and that's the only manual activity in the entire process. Someone has to review that error log, determine what was the reason for the error, and then resubmit those to be processed as accurate billable activities. We're even looking at AI to reduce that effort. So you've got the client contract that controls what the billable activities are and how they're billed, and you've got the automatic process of collecting all the billable activities. And then we automatically create sales orders. I'll describe that process when we get into it. We automatically create invoices, and we can take those invoices all the way to automatically sent if you wish to do it, although some of our clients stop just short of that and have an internal review before they're sent. But all of that allows us to do billing in a matter of days. This is getting into freight reconciliation. I'm going to skip that for now, and we're going to jump right into the demo and then come back to this slide at the end. So let me change sessions here and go back to my demo environment. Okay, so have all of you seen Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain before? If anybody hasn't, please raise their hand. All right, good. Then no raised hands. I'm going to assume that you guys know how to navigate through the system, and that'll save me a little bit of time here in the demo. As you know, then this is a landing page where most users will start their day, and they'll have 1 to 3 or 4 of these workplaces that are set up for their role. In this case, we're going to look primarily at the billable activity workspace down here. But these typically would be everything that a user needs to know to do their job. So what we have here is pending and failed billable activities on the list. We've got billable activities that are pending. I've got 90 of them that have not been processed to orders yet. I actually have none that have failed today. That's too bad, because I wanted to show you one of those. Processed in the last 24 hours. Non-summarized storage activity. I'll explain that in a couple of minutes. And then client contracts, billable activity orders, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll go through all of these. If we go into contracts first, since I said that's where I would start this demo, let's use 200 here as an effective or basic contract review. The first thing you'll see in the contract is this series of dates down the middle. If you look at trade agreements in Standard Dynamics AX, or sorry, D365, I'm dating myself here. They have an effective start and an effective end date. And that presents problems for clients using them, because you either have to leave the end date open, or if you put an end date on it, the day after that occurs, all of your activities go in at no charge, which creates a horrible mess for billing. What we've done is we've changed that. The signature date is just for information. It doesn't do anything. But the effective start date is when this contract starts. The expiration date, and you notice this is 2026, is when this contract will end. But we also have escalation dates. So the contract could be escalated every year or every 6 months after the start date. And these are automatic escalations. And they would change the prices of any of the billable activities that you've identified as eligible for escalation. We also have automatic renewal dates. So as of December 31st, 2026, this contract will expire, but it will also automatically renew January 1st, 2027, based on our auto renewal capabilities over here. And that can be set up and automated as well. So it does that every year after the expiration of our initial 2-year contract here. So we've automated the management of these contracts to make it very simple, and so that they don't lapse and cause you to have billing errors. Now, if a client wants to quit doing business with you, we could also identify an offboarding date, especially if that doesn't coincide with their expiration date, and then finally a termination date. And during these offboarding and termination periods, we can raise the prices of what we're going to do for these clients, since they're offboarding before the end of their normal contract expiration. So we've created rules around how that works as well, and I'll show you that in one more page. We can also set up payment terms and freight reconciliation adjustment codes, other things here. And we can set up alerts. Now let me show you the next page down on alerts, because alerts are not your standard Microsoft alerts that you find up here in options, where I can create an alert. These are after something occurs. You know, if a record is added, if a record is changed, or something is removed, then these alerts occur. We're talking about proactive alerts. So we can say that when expiration is 90 days out, then I want to alert the users to contact the client and remind them that the expiration comes with an auto renewal, that their rates may go up based on the predefined rules, and allow them to proactively work through those issues with clients. Same thing with renewal dates. Give them 30 days before a renewal date to review those. So, and these can be set on anything. These are just 2 dates that we've set examples on, but these automatic and proactive alerts can be defined for any project status. We have different statuses of the project: in approval, being revised, revoking approval, suspended, reinstated, offboarded, terminated, etc. So we can keep track of the statuses here. And as I mentioned, the auto renewal can be scheduled here, but the escalation is scheduled on the next page, because it can be quite complicated. What we've said here is that we've got a contract price that we're doing business with these clients based on the billable activities that you'll see here in a couple minutes. And that contract price is in effect when the when the contract is effective. If the contract gets suspended for a dispute or whatever, then we're going to go to list price. And list price is 15% higher than contract price. So clients will pay more for any billable activities that they generate during a suspension period. And if we're offboarding a client and it's not when their normal contract ends, Then we're going to go to an offboarding price, which is 25% higher. Now, all these are examples, and they'll be negotiated by you with your clients at the time you set up these contracts. But the key here is we don't just lapse a contract and go to zero pricing. We have specific rules that automatically come into play when the contract status changes. Regarding escalation, we can have different escalation rules. I've got a default rule here that says we're going to go up by 5% or the lesser of the percent of the employment cost index, and that happens every year. Not only can I do that, but I can define which billable activities are affected by that. So here, at the end of every year, we're going to look at the employment cost index, and if it's 3%, we'll use that. If it's 6%, we'll just go up 5%. So we've got a rule defined here for determining how much prices can change year over year based on our automatic escalations. And then we've got different rate methods. As I mentioned, we've got straight simple billing rates. We've got rate matrices, which by turning this on, I can use the rate matrices. My rate matrices are based on case or piece prices, so I can have different rules for those. Typically, it's cheaper. Well, let's put it this way. If it's $1 a piece to pick these products and ship them, and there's 12 products in a case, we're not going to charge $12 to ship a case because it's easier to ship a case of 12 than individual pieces. So we might charge $5 for a case. So we need a rate matrix to define the different rates based on quantities picked, because if a client orders 25 pieces, that's 2 cases of 12 and 1 piece. They're going to get charged different rates for the picking. So we've got that built in as well. And then we can waive fees based on compliance rules. That's something more complex that we'll get into later. And then finally on this page, you'll see that we can do branding. So when we ship on behalf of this client that's on the contract up here, this client number US 200, we're shipping as if we shipped from them and with their contact information and their logo. So all the shipping documents and paperwork that goes with the shipment looks like it came from the client, not from us as a third-party provider. So that's a very quick overview of the basic contract header information. Let's jump into contract lines. We have one-time charges. I don't have an example of that here, but this might be setting up a new client for their EDI profile, setting up a new client to onboard their first inventory, determining what volumes we're going to be working with them and doing some analysis of the inventory requirements for them. So those are all one-time charges that would be done typically at the beginning of a contract. They could also be at the end of a contract. Then we have recurring charges. These are typically weekly or monthly charges. And as you'll notice out here, the duration for these, the charge schedule is monthly, but it can be any charge schedule you want over here in this column. I have 2 of them here, a fixed storage charge and an accounting service charge. And if you look over here at the rates, I've got a contract rate here, let me minimize this, of $5,500 per month for my fixed storage charge and $900 a month for my account service charge. And then at list price, of course, those go up by 15% because that was the rule we defined back on the contract header. So we can have as many of these recurring charges as you need to manage your business with your clients. And these can run the gamut, all kinds of different things. Now, storage does not have to be a fixed charge. That's just one way to handle storage. I'll show you other ways here in a couple of minutes. There can also be minimum charges, and minimum charges are unique in that I've got a minimum charge, I charge it monthly, but it's based on other billable activities. So you see on the list on the left, I've got shipping charges, receiving charges, materials charges, storage charges, warehouse operations. I can define what gets calculated into this minimum rate. So if the sum of all of those charges in this column, or sorry, in that cell, are greater than 15,000 a month, there will be no minimum. But if they're less than 15,000 a month, say they come in at 12,000, then the minimum fee will get us up to 15, which would be a $3,000 minimum charge. So we can define minimums that are based on anything else in the system. So I might have multiple minimums here. I might have a minimum for storage, a minimum for shipping, or in this case, I've got all of them bundled into one. Miscellaneous charges is the client's way to add anything else they can think of that we didn't think of, and this can be anything you can imagine. I've got one client that ships petroleum from the US to Europe, and they charge by the tank. So even if you've got 1 gallon in a 50,000 gallon tank, you've rented the tank for the month. So they've got that set up as a miscellaneous charge. Storage charges. We calculate them 3 ways. We can have fixed storage based on the number of units or pallets or square footage that you're taking up in a warehouse. We can have storage based on aging, where the longer the goods have been in our warehouse, the more we charge for them, because 3PL providers live on transactions. They don't want to be your storage location. So if you're storing inventory that's over 30 days old or over 60 days old, the storage fees will likely go up. So in addition to the fixed storage, we can have calculated storage based on aging. And then the third way we do it is based on peak or average. So we can take inventory snapshots on a hourly basis, daily basis, weekly basis, whatever is built into your contract. And then we average those numbers, or we define the peak number and charge based on whatever that value is. So fixed storage based on square footage, units, or number of pallets, aged storage, or average and peak storage calculations. And then we get into the transaction types. From here on down, we're looking primarily at transactions. So if a client is using Dynamics Warehouse Management, the bulk of the transactions are going to come from the warehouse. Not necessarily all, because you may purchase special packaging for a client and have to pick up that purchase cost. You may have pallets or packing peanuts or shrink wrap or whatever in your inventory that gets used by clients that you want to charge for as well. That would fall under materials down here. But this is primarily the operations that are taking place in the warehouse. Now you'll notice 2 colors here. Green are active now, and yellow are going to be active when the escalation takes place. So when the contract is, and you'll notice right here, I'm out of date. I haven't updated this contract. So as of January 1st, this yellow line should have become green, and this green line at the top should have become yellow, because this one replaces that one. And I have not updated my contract because this is a demo system and I get lazy. I apologize for that. But this one should currently be expired, and this one should be effective. But what we've got here is the ability to define picking work, packing work, any kind of work that's done in the warehouse that we can pick up on a handheld scanner, and then define that work based on the type of work in the warehouse. So this is sales work, so I'm picking for sales orders. This could be production work if I'm going to pick to a kitting station. It could be anything that's defined in Dynamics Warehouse Management System or in any other warehouse management system where they can define work within the warehouse that we can pick off as billable activities. Now, there are cases where we want to make sure that we're capturing work, but we don't have a work type to do it. So container closing is one of those types. There is no work type in Dynamics Warehouse Management for container closing. So we consider that indirect work, and we use the indirect work types that are already defined for advanced warehouse management in Dynamics, and we simply extended that list. So now if the sales order is picked, then obviously the container is going to get closed at the packing station. We can get that billable activity generated without any work actually being done, because it's based on another activity being done in its place. And here you can see work based on purchase orders. So not just sales work, but it could be receiving activities. And then finally, I've got one down here that is none, and is also none from the warehouse. And this is a derived activity. This is something that I've calculated, and I've determined how I'm going to bill for it within our 3PL billing solution, and it has nothing to do with the warehouse. So this might be a labeling charge or a charge based on certain quantities of inventory. So these are all different billable activities that either occur in the warehouse or are related to warehouse activities, and the way I've automatically defined them as indirect or derived them and calculated them. We can have expenses coming in from expense systems, Dynamics, Concur, and others to handle warehouse expenses. We can have receiving charges, shipping charges, and I'll come back to those, cycle counting charges. Purchase charges are interesting because we might have to buy special labels or special packing or other things for clients that they want included in their shipments. And we can bill those Two ways. We can charge them upon receipt of the purchase order, not the goods, but the purchase order. So we charge them a deposit based on when we confirm the PO with our vendor to buy goods on their behalf. And then we can charge them again at receipt. So the balance, in this case, I've got a 20% charge on deposit and a 80% remainder on the balance. And I can also have a percent markup on that. So in this case, you'll see no rates here because it depends on what's on the PO, but we can charge a 15% upcharge on those so that we turn this into a profit center as well. We're purchasing on behalf of the client and we're charging them a service charge to do that. And that's true of all of these charges that I've gone over so far. They can also all have both list price updates as well as percent charges or adjustments. Materials is when we're using our pallets or our bubble wrap or our materials on behalf of clients, and we want to bill for that. And then let's get back to shipping. Shipping is probably the activity that is done most by a 3PL provider. And here you'll see I've only got one simple shipping line here, and that is I'm going to ship. I'm going to bill this monthly. It's going to be based on order lines, and I'm going to charge a sales price of $1.25. My list price, if we were to get outside of an effective contract, goes up. And then I can also put a percentage adjustment on this, but I haven't. But you'll notice here that my rate matrix is active, which means I can also put additional charges in here based on attributes. And let me show you an example where I've got this. Let's go back to warehouse management and grab, I think it's picking, if I'm not mistaken here, and go to rate matrix. And of course, it's going to slow down, typical of a demo. There we go. So here, my rate matrix for picking says that yes, I can have a basic picking charge, but cases versus eaches for different product types, accessories, dessert wines, red wines, rosé wines, sparkling wines, etc., regardless of their method of handling, can have different charges if they're handled normally or if they're expedited or by different brands. So all of my rates can be uniquely defined over here by dozens of different criteria, by destination, by hazard level, by origin, by whatever attributes you wish to define. You can categorize your costs. Maybe for hazardous material, you're going to charge a surcharge. For cases, you're going to have one rate. For pieces, you're going to have another rate. All of these can be defined in the rate matrix, so we can have as complex or as simple a rate structure as you need for identifying what you charge your clients. Does that make sense to everyone? If there are any questions on this, please raise a hand. I want to make sure everybody gets this. Okay, not seeing any hands yet. That's a good thing. Okay, so we've got these contracts and we've got the contract lines that identify the billable activities. How does it all work? Let's go back to our workspace for just a minute. At some point in the process, we're going to generate billable activities that come through our API. As I mentioned, they come through in real time if it's from a Dynamics 365 module like purchasing or warehouse or fulfillment. They come in near real time because we can set up the interface to pick data off every 10 minutes, every 5 minutes, whatever, from external systems. And each of these billable activities has a record identifier and then detailed data about it. What type of billable activity it is, what the quantity is, what the handling unit is, cubic feet in this case, what the rates are. All of that information is captured here in the billable activity based on the contract line. So we know what we imported and we know what values we've applied to it based on the contract line. And these billable activities then get processed into sales orders and invoices. So if I go back here again and I go to billable activity sales orders, the system does two things. If it's the first billable activity in a period, like a week or a month, it will automatically create the sales order and then add the line to it. If it's a subsequent billable activity in that same interval of the week or the month, it will simply add billable activities to an existing sales order. So we completely automate the creation of sales orders and the management of sales orders. Let's take a look at this one down here because it's the same company we've just been looking at with contract 200. And what you'll see on this sales order is that the lines are summarized. Not every billable activity is a line, because then you'd have 10,000 to 100,000 lines on a sales order. That's not going to be manageable. But they're summarized based on the way the client wants to see them. So the client can say they want to see them by warehouse, they want to see them by activity type, they want to see them by brand, by line of business, however they want to see them. And we summarize the lines on the sales order the way they've requested. Then behind each of these lines, we've got the billable activity detail. These are the actual billable activities that have come through and are assigned to that line. Now here you see 5 or 6, but this would be hundreds of lines in a typical weekly sales order, because a lot of shipping is typically done on behalf of clients. So these are all the billable activity lines. These are all the details that passed the edits and got into this sales order. So we know there are no errors in this list. And every type of billable activity on this is going to have a list of billable activities behind it. So they all get accumulated here as the details behind the line. So as a result of that, we have the billable activity sales orders that are automatically generated and automatically added to over the duration of the period, whether it's a weekly period or a monthly period. Could even be a daily period. One of our clients does bill daily. And these then are automatically converted to invoices at the end of that duration. So if this was a 1-week sales order, started on Monday, the following Sunday night, it automatically gets created into an invoice, and the invoice will have the same summary lines, same rates that are applied here, and all of that detail behind the scenes. So when we present the invoice to clients, we're presenting them the summary invoice and providing them a document that has all of the detail lines. And the reason we do that is we want to, A, bill them more frequently, and B, we want to make sure that there are fewer disputes and that we get paid quicker as well, because we provided all the details so the client knows exactly what they're paying for, and they can audit that against what they think they told us to ship. So if they told us to ship 500 lines and we're charging them for picking 500 lines, it all nets out. And that level of detail creates a great deal of comfort for your 3PL clients, so that they know they're being billed accurately, and they can refer that back to their contract and see that the billing rates are accurate as well. So we've covered contracts, we've covered the detail lines within contracts, we've looked at a detail of a sales order. Let's move out to the portal now for a minute and take a look at how we present that information to the client. So I'm going to sign in here as if I was a client now. So now I'm logged in, and it knows, because I logged in as a specific user, it knows which company I work for and what access I have. Now, we would have one administrator within each of the client companies, and they would be able to manage add users at their own company and define the permissions for those users within their company, because they may want some people to only be able to review invoices and others to be able to generate disputes or other types of documents. So I've got the ability here to do work that's specified based on the limits of my responsibility. Now I happen to have full access, so I'll show you more than a typical user would see. But I've got a home screen here that allows me to see the landing screen, which we tailor to each client's requirements. This is just an example. Different capabilities here that they can review. We provide video capabilities on this, some reporting and analysis, and then we also have a facility down here for frequently asked questions and anything else a client would like to have on their landing page. From the company view, I can take a look at my account balances, and I can see what open invoices I have. Okay, here we go. So Eastern Wine has a number of open invoices. Again, because I'm an administrator, I see other clients, but you would, if you're logging in as an Eastern Wine employee, you would only see Eastern Wine invoices. And you can see the total amount of the invoice, the date it was due, the amount that's still open, etc. Okay. And we can also see details here. So I can open up and view the invoice details. Now, these are the details that are on the invoice. So these are just typical header and line details. Okay, if I go back here and go into billing, and I go into my transactions, okay, I can see the balances due, the voucher that's been settled, the settlement amounts, and all of the other details about these invoices. Okay, I've got multiple pages of those. I can request support, so I can put in a support request because I don't understand something, and we keep track of the status as active or resolved. And I can also generate a credit memo if I think I've been charged incorrectly. So I can request a credit memo or view current credit memos that are open and see what the status of those are. Now, in addition to that, I can also bring up the, let me go back here to my documents. I can also bring up all the details behind the scenes. So, and I don't have any example. I do have one out here. So I've got one invoice example out here where I can bring up every billable activity that was on that invoice that affected the price that you see on it. So as a result here, I've got all the details behind the scenes so that it makes it easier for me to evaluate invoices and therefore pay them on time. So this is our current 3PL customer invoice, or sorry, customer portal. Microsoft has set up a preview now of a feature that will allow us to collect payments through the portal as soon as that's generally available. And I think that's either 10.0.43 or 10.0.44. We will also be allowing clients to pay through this portal as well. The only thing holding that up is Microsoft, not us. We're ready to go with it. So that's the portal, and that allows clients to communicate with us effectively. Finally, I want to make sure that you understand that we're also providing Power BI analysis. So 3PL providers, and they could even allow these to be accessed by their clients, can evaluate their services. They can see what their top 10 services are by both quantity of service provided and by amount, and they can differ depending on our billable rates. And I don't know why this is taking so long to generate. There we go. So these are pieces shipped, small parcel shipments, variable storage charges, LTL. You can see the different rates here. Here I can see that I spend most of my money on LTL and second most on ocean freight, then small parcel. This is one of my international clients. I can see sales by period, and I can look at that in detail or summary. So I've got it open up now to all levels, but if I close this up, I can see it by year, then I can see it by quarters, and I can see it by periods within the quarters, and then finally weeks within the quarters as well. So that allows me to look at that data. In all cases and on all these reports, if I right click on this and drill through, I can bring up the revenue detail. So I can see every billable transaction that makes up that number, and these can be in the millions. So all of that detail is provided. And let's go back to my sales by warehouse. So this allows me to look at products sold out of different warehouses. You'll see down here, I've got different warehouses. I can select the one I want to see the data from. I could even have different legal entities, so I can see it from one or all warehouses. And I can also change the date ranges down here. Revenue by type. This shows me what types of billable activities are generating the greatest revenue for me. Warehouse operations here looks like it's the highest. Piece charges, and then the number of pieces shipped. And of course, dates are, I can change the date range. Yep, change the views. And then I can also drill down into the details. Sorry, right click on this thing and drill through to the details. So very, very flexible reporting by top 10 services, by sales by period, sales by warehouse, sales by type, transportation revenue, which is always a high number for most 3PL companies, storage revenue by types, and then purchase revenue by types. So it gives you a lot of data to analyze your warehouse operations and your 3PL billing to see where you're spending most of your money, as well as from a quantity standpoint, where you're spending most of your time, so you can optimize your warehouse operations. So we're just about at the point where I should turn this over for Q&A. Are there any open questions at this time? I can go back to the the PowerPoint slide for the moment, or I can stay in the system in case there are questions about the system. Aaron, do you want to check on questions?
Yeah, Steve, I got you. It doesn't look like there's nothing been popped into the chat, but if you guys do have any questions at this moment, feel free to jump off mute or raise your hand and address Steve directly. Yeah.
Yeah, either there are no questions because I did a great job, or you completely dislike what I presented. So please ask something.
I think you did a great job, Steve.
No, I'm not fishing for that. I just want to make sure we answer all their questions. Well, if there are no questions, let me offer this. If any of this makes sense to you and you'd like a full demo of the entire solution that would work for your company or your clients' companies, if you happen to be a Microsoft partner, please let us know. We are very happy to do a similar presentation that's tailored to the needs of your company or your clients, depending on what your perspective is here.
It looks like a couple of questions are popping into chat right now, Steve.
Excellent.
So,
excellent.
Question: do we have any modules for freight to handle freight forwarding or TMS? Was the first question.
That's an excellent question. So yes and no. What you'll find is the TMS module within Dynamics 365 is clunky and not best of breed. I don't mean to bash the software that pays my paycheck, but it's not the best one out there. So we tend to work with a number of third-party TMSs that clients find on their own that they prefer to work with. So we can work with Dynamics TMS, and we've augmented that dramatically with our automated freight reconciliation, which is our next webinar on this topic that will be coming out in March, April. But typically our clients have their own TMS, so we import data from their TMS. Could be anything as simple as carriers, could be the complete carrier rate structures, and it could be their fulfillment shipments as well. So we typically work with external TMSs. We can work with Dynamics, but to date, none of our clients have chosen to use that module. And our freight reconciliation module augments that dramatically to give us automated freight reconciliation as well. Hope that answered the question.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. Pause for another moment. If there are any other questions, feel free to pop them in chat again or raise your hand. Boom, boom. Freight forwarding as well was the follow-up on that. Freight forwarding.
Can you give me a little bit more information on what you mean? That's a broad topic. Get me a little more information on what specifically you're asking, and I can give you a more specific answer.
I can see it's Brian from Corix.
Okay.
Yeah, outside the module, ocean, air freight. He's just popping some follow-up details in chat. Yeah.
Well, we can certainly collect billable activities from freight carriers, and that is true whether they are EDI capable or whether they're going to send us flat files or Excel or any other file format that we can pull through the API. So we would work with freight forwarders to pick up the billable activities that will generate the freight fees that we charge to our 3PL clients. We don't provide a freight forwarding service, but we pull the data from those forwarders to make sure that all those billable activities are collected and billed correctly.
Right. I think you answered the question, Steve. If there's anything else, if not, thank you guys. Thank you all so much for your time. We appreciate you being here. Again, we do have those webinars in chat coming up. The ones on 10043 and Power Automate workflow approvals, as well as AMCS Lite. And there will be some more 3PL webinars coming up in the next few months as well.